Hello and welcome. Welcome everybody early morning on the West Coast time and at the assorted parts of the day, wherever else you might be in the world. Our friend Dong Wang from China is chiming in very late at night tonight. My name is David Albert Pierce. I am the chair of this program and former chair of the entertainment law section. This is a part two of a world look at film finance and production. We had done part one last year in kind of a weird time when we were just dealing with this pandemic and how it affected the filming around the world. We brought back many of our same participants from last year, and we brought an Eastern European production service provider from Serbia that's going to give us a little bit of the Eastern European view, and certainly a lot of stuff going on in that part of the world. Ukraine did have a tax incentive program. I noticed when I checked the EP site that it's all of those materials are down for obvious reasons, and we do hope that country can survive and flourish and return to its once great prominence in the art world that it has always held. So we got a lot of wonderful speakers. We're going to let each country kind of do its own presentation. Then we'll have a little bit of a free-for-all. My friend Massimo Sterpi, who is going to be speaking about Italy, is going to go first because he's incredibly under the weather, has a tremendously high fever. So if he gets something wrong or makes something completely up about Italy, we'll blame it on his fever dream and not hold it against his substantive knowledge, because he is an incredibly brilliant guy on this subject, and we're thrilled to have him. So before we bring him on, just a couple statements. I'll make this mention at the end. The Beverly Hills Bar, if you're a member of the bar, and you don't have to be in Beverly Hills to be a member. So many of our things occur by webinar. You can join, and if you are a member, you can join the Entertainment Executive Committee. We meet the first Wednesday of each month. We used to meet in the Beverly Hills office and get some nice bagels and cream cheese. But since the pandemic, it's all been by Zoom. The advantage is you get to your office a little bit quicker. And those monthly meetings are where we plan these types of programs. So if you have an idea for a program or would like to be involved in the planning, first Wednesday of every month at 8:30, the executive board chair is Greg Zeibolt. His information is there. And later on in the materials, there's another site that you can go right to the Beverly Hills Bar website to register for the monthly planning meetings. Here's a look at who we have as our panelists today. The distinguished Mark Edwards from Edwards Creative Law in Canada, Bill Grantham from Rufus-Isaacs firm, who is going to talk about Ireland and the UK. Marianna Vargas is the film commissioner for the Dominican Republic, and we're thrilled to have her bring a little Latin American flair to these proceedings. Milan is an actual production services provider in Serbia, as I mentioned. Massimo is our Italian expert, and my dear friend Dong Wang in Beijing is going to tell us everything that's going on in China and great changes going on there. Boy, when I was last out with Dong, I guess 4 years ago, we both spoke at Shanghai School of Film and Television about the differences between US and China film production. And at that time, they were building like 100 theaters a week. 100 screens were going up in the country every week, which is tremendous. And Dong is going to tell you that's really changed since the pandemic. And it'll be interesting to see if that's just a temporary thing that passes with the pandemic, or there's a real cultural change in how Chinese citizens get their entertainment. And again, my name is David Pierce with Pierce Law Group here in Beverly Hills. Our panel is going to talk a little bit about the respective tax incentives in each territory. We're going to talk about some of the unique aspects of filming in each territory and what producers should know. We'll talk a little bit, of course, about how COVID-19 has affected production and distribution. We'll talk about some of the production booms that have actually resulted from COVID-19 and along with the effect of streamers such as Netflix. We're seeing a universal pattern around the world with perhaps the exception of China. And in case there's any unique labor issues or other government regulations that a producer that's going into these specific territories should be aware of, such as a lot of these countries that we're going to be talking about today have very vigorous moral rights, something which is unheard of here in the US. And they'll tell us what we need to know about that. And then everyone will give a little bit of thought on their trends and forecasts for where we're going in the future. So without further ado, I'll make mention that come Monday, if you are a registered participant, you'll get some additional written materials. There are a number of articles that I have written for Movie Maker magazine over the years that if you're a producer or if you're production counsel, you're bound to enjoy them. They're written in a very straightforward, common sense way, give some nuts and bolts about film financing, some articles about a lot of, the rampant con men that are out there in film financing. I was part of a program a year ago that was called Con-a-Con, that just focused on con men in the film industry and all the different ways that people can cheat filmmakers or talent and et cetera. It was a really fun program. There is we'll show you a case study that takes a look at, is it fraud or was it just a stupid producer who didn't know what they were doing? There's some discussions about equity crowdfunding and some basic financing rules for those that want to know the 30 ways to finance a film or such. There's some articles in there that talk about the basic ways film get financed. Some discussions again about keeping the production on time, on budget, and honest with really solid line producers, accountants, and attorneys. I think Milan is going to talk a little bit about the importance of that when you're working in Serbia. And there's an article about understanding completion bonds, some tax incentives information, and some information about film grants that you'll also see in here. I also want to encourage everybody, they're not a paid sponsor in any way, but Entertainment Partners really has, I think, the definitive materials on tax incentives around the world. We'll show you a couple of website addresses to hit for them, and they just seem every year to be getting better and better at handling it. It's now very interactive. You go to the world map and you hit on the country that you want to see. You can push on the Dominican Republic and it'll then give you all of the information that you need about all the different programs that they have right in the Dominican Republic with a lot of interactivity. As I said, you just hit the particular country in the map and it'll tell you what's available for you to compare and contrast. Some big overall themes before we turn it over to Massimo. Just this week, the Los Angeles Business Journal, and there's a site there for where you can read it, talks about the surge that streamers are creating with below the line work, a theme that we're going to hear today, I think. And the quote that I pulled out of that article is, they're almost like year-round productions, and some of those start in pre-pandemic days, and the customers were where the customers were shopping around, talking about all the different, I think this was talking about a prop house that is bursting at the seams right now because they're seeing so much production that's going on. So a great article from last week from the LA Business Journal. A great article that came just yesterday, April 29, ripped from the headlines of the Hollywood Wrap Pro that had 6 takeaways from the recent CinemaCon presentation that just went on in Vegas. And the headline on that is post-pandemic excitement, too many superheroes and more diversity. And the 6 big takeaways were that big movies are back. Jordan Peele keeps making horror films that deliver. Diversity makes for better movies. People are getting a little tired of the superhero blockbusters. What are they? Because Marvel keeps putting them out. The word on the street is the Tom Cruise movie is phenomenal. And it was very interesting. The article points out that last year Netflix was the word out of everybody's mouth. Now, not a mention. Maybe it's just because they've become so status quo and it's just an existence of life. And finally, late last night, that came in at 9:05 p.m. So this is people maybe waking up to hearing this. Deadline.com reports that the Hollywood COVID-19 protocols have been extended until new agreement can be reached. And there was no date really as to when that new agreement would be even started to be negotiated. But they were set to expire today, and they have been extended. So talks of the pandemic ending may be premature. Certainly in Hollywood, they're going to continue with the very same protocols that they put in place at the very beginning of this. And our speakers are going to tell us whether that's working or not in their areas of the world. Again, here's a real quick look at tax incentives in the US. And when you go to the actual EP site, which I have listed right here for you, ep.com/production-incentives/US/, you can point on to each one of these states. It'll tell you whether it's an incentive, a tax rebate or tax credit, and how it works and how to apply. They have two different portals for Canada, which Mark Edwards is going to talk about those two different paths in Canada. And then they have a list of all the international production incentives. Again, you can go there and you can hit on the map each one of these territories and find out what they have to offer. This is the world at a glance of where you could possibly film and what money is available. It's a listing of some popular film grants. I would encourage anyone that's looking for film grants and to not overlook that potential area of financing, to simply use Google and search it out, because these are only just a brief sampling. So let's begin with Italy and my good friend Massimo, and I will turn that over to him to say hello as I load up his PowerPoint. Let me
you can
say hello and let me
I believe I will be unable to move.
I'm going to get your PowerPoint up for you, and we'll talk a little bit about it. And since you're feeling a little under the weather, why don't I just, you know what, I'll just talk to you with the PowerPoint up. We'll just get you on here, and then we'll make the literature available after the fact for the folks.
Sure.
Massimo, tell me about the state of Italy and their filmmaking in general right now today, and how it might compare from last year.
Yeah, interestingly, during the pandemic, contrary to any expectation, film production increased in Italy. We went from expenditure on film production of 2017 of 1.1 billion euros to 1.5 billion euros in 2020. So that's quite interesting, and interesting data. Actually, Italy made several things to become attractive. First of all, implemented very strict COVID measures and COVID protocols, including creating so-called production bubbles, meaning hotels where the actors, the producer, the various technicians were gathering and staying during the shooting of the film, so that they were limiting exposure to other people, and actually permitted production to continue. At the same time, Italy has been very generous with tax incentives, not only for the level, but also for the methodology of the repayment to the foreign investor. We had this conversation yesterday, David, and I checked your question. Actually, not only the maximum tax rebate was 30% of up to 75% of the total production cost, but on top of that, it was increased to 40%. So it's no longer 30%, but it's 40%. But on top of that, provided that the foreign producer couples with an Italian executive producer that has to pay taxes in Italy, actually the tax, let's say, the tax credit can be cashed monthly by the Italian partner. So every month they get 40% back out of the 75% of the production cost. And this amount can be used to avoid the foreign producer to pay that amount of the production cost. So it's incredibly, let's say, favorable, because actually this permits the foreign producer to get basically, if you think 40% of 75% is actually a 30% discount on the production cost, which is quite unique. Also because it is paid back better, discounted monthly according to the expenditure timing. So this is one of the things. At the same time, we have a very favorable situation for what are called the Italian film commissions, which are these, let's say, services provided by regions. There are 20 regions in Italy, and each of them basically has one Italian or one film commission, and they offer services for free for film production, meaning they found location, they advise on tax credit and tax discount, they help foreign producer to find the Italian producer or service companies. So that has been working very well. And also culturally, that's interesting, as there is a nationwide coordination of film commission, they try to avoid that all foreign production go to the same places, so to avoid that Italy becomes sort of stereotype, everybody going to Rome, everybody going to Venice or something like that. So they try to persuade, maybe highlighting the advantages, the contribution, the free services they get, also to go to smaller places, less known cities, and I think they are doing a great job. To make an example, one of the most followed TV series in China is called Capri, and is shot in the island of Capri, and apparently has an enormous following. So these continue bringing the image of Italy at a very high level around the world. Just to give you an idea about the number of production, last year, around March last year, there were only in Rome and in the surrounding areas, 230 productions going on. So 230 production is enormous, only in one region. So we are certainly in the hundreds. The second most active region for film production is Piedmont, and then you have Naples, plus the others, but they are less active. So to give you an idea of this production opportunity, Cinecittà, which is this very big studios in Rome, has now opened 3 studios in the, let's say, in the suburbs of Rome or nearby. Plus, they recently opened another big studio in Morocco. So they have already 100 acres of, let's say, land that is devoted to various backdrops, plus various stages. So there are a very large number of opportunities. And in fact, we attracted very big productions. Also, as to the level of let's say, of the tax discount, there was a limit per film or per production that was about 9 millions. It has been doubled to 18 millions, so per production, which is already an interesting amount. And on top of that, we can also remember that these tax incentives are not only provided for feature films, but also for TV series, and also for documentary and even music videos. So we are really trying to be attractive for all sorts of productions, provided they come to Italy. Another interesting thing is that to be able to access a tax credit in Italy, it is sufficient to shoot one day in Italy. So you don't have to shoot in Italy, for X number of days. And another thing is not only shooting, but also pre-production and post-production services can be benefited with tax discounts. So to give you an idea, we have, the total amount that is devoted by the Italian government to cinema production went up from 400 millions to 640 millions, which is a very big amount. Actually, through this strategy, we were able to counter the disastrous fall of cinema in-person attendance. We went from 2009, we had 97 million attendees and a turnover about 635 million euros. And now lately we are like 25 million attendees and 170 million. So is 1/4. So through these productions, we were incentives, we were able to keep the Italian cinema alive. Another thing that has to be highlighted is the big arrival of a platform, a streaming platform, and starting from Netflix. They opened a big office in Italy, and they are super active in this kind of productions. They even joined the Association of Film Producer, which was normally reserved for more traditional producer, and also other platforms joined the Film Producer Association. So actually we are making them on an equal basis to film producer, which probably has a new reality that has to be accepted. Coming to copyright issues and things like that, certainly Italy, as most continental countries in Europe, have a much stronger protection of moral rights. And as you know, moral rights cannot be waived and cannot be, let's say, transferred. But nevertheless, we all understand that this does not prevent film production or distribution to happen. We have hundreds of films being made. So clearly the level of conflict between film producer and the many people involved is not so high, so to say. In the end, it's not a big hurdle. Another set of rights.
No, it's such a fascinating issue to American lawyers, the moral rights provision and our novelty and that we just don't experience it here. Could you talk about one or two cases, situations where this actually arises with either in the film industry or other aspects of the creative
Sure.
arts, and how those problems are resolved?
Sure. Actually, one example could be a script of a film that is bought by a production company, and then the production company decide to change substantially the script, maybe for cost reason, to reduce the length of the film, whatever. But then maybe they totally alter the original significance of the film. So the person that wrote the original script, or the author of the book from which the film was drawn, can actually complain. We had a discussion yesterday with you, a conversation about that. How can you draft clauses trying to limit this to happen? Certainly, what you can do is, the best strategy is to have the person that have a veto right to approve the various stages of let's say, the evolution of the product. Because if they approved, it's difficult for them to be able to say, oh, I feel damaged, my personality is completely altered by these changes. So actually, this is probably the best way, keeping them involved and knowing maybe also being a bit cynical, putting also some money target along the way, so that they don't approve.
With the approval comes payment
Exactly.
in cash.
So they don't get paid. So
That is a very practical way of dealing with this. That's
something
great.
that they did in the past.
Because you told me that the language that we have where it says it'll say you waive your moral rights. If the moral rights can't be waived, you assign them to us. If they're not assignable, you agree that you will not utilize your moral rights in a way that conflicts with the many other artists and creators that equally have moral rights tied into this program. And you said all of that is somewhat questionable as to whether Italy would even any of those
very
clauses.
likely not to be enforceable, not to say certainly not enforceable. But just to give you another example, there was a famous composer called Lucio Battisti in Italy, and they wanted to use a song for a film to synchronize with a film, and he strongly opposed that because he didn't want for his music to be associated with any film. That was in general, music should be music. He didn't want to be associated with any filming content, and actually there was a litigation. Actually, they won because they cannot be forced to be associated to a story they don't like, or in general. These are also examples of moral right because they claim that they were damaged in their reputation, etc. Another set of rights that we should never forget are the personality rights, which are equally unwaivable. So, for instance, we advise a famous production company from LA about a film about baby prostitutes. So young girls that decided completely, independently, to start prostituting themselves to buy luxury objects and things. And the names of the girls were known. They were like teenager, minor of age, and many important people were involved. There were clients. Nevertheless, we changed many of these aspects, but we did the clearance of all these personality right aspects. And in the end, they never got sued, which was the most delicate subject matter we could have treated. So actually, if you pay attention, there are ways to prevent litigation to occur.
Terrific. And do you want to talk a little bit about the Maya festival in Rome?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's interesting for everybody in the audience because, in a sense, after the American Film Festival in Santa Monica, beforehand we had other European festivals there were proving as, let's say, European alternative. But now, also take into account travel restrictions. Actually, the MIA Festival, the film market in Italy, in Rome, got very successful. We had more than 2,000 delegates, and people probably prefer to travel locally, rather than across the continents. And it was so it started emerging as an alternative, like a local alternative to the American film market, FMN. So that's an interesting thing to know. And also for producer and other professionals, maybe to select MIA as the next destination for potential deal making in the film industry.
Terrific. And so, any closing thoughts on for what a producer coming to Italy would most want to know to make their shoot easy and most productive? What are some tips for either those producers out there or the attorneys that here in the US that advise them?
I have 4 tips. First one, they need to know that tax-wise, that's the most favorable tax rebate ever. So it's the best in Europe. And they get the money back during the production, monthly, which is unique. The second one, the variety of locations is infinite. And and the Film Commission work for free just to permit to have so many possibilities. The fourth thing is that probably for American lawyer, while they are fantastic in drafting film production agreement, I always suggest them to partner with a local lawyer, just to avoid that certain local, let's say, uniqueness, like moral rights, personality rights, or other things. You know, for instance, that in Germany, copyrights cannot be assigned; they can only be licensed. So it's much better to have a local, let's say, a lawyer to advise, just to avoid that. If anything occurs, you discover that a production agreement that worked perfectly for dozens of times in the States without any problem end up being unenforceable. But when you discover that it's too late. So certainly that's my advice.
Thank you so much. There's a lot of information packed in there, and we're going to let you, we'll see if there's any questions in the Q&A about Italy for Massimo, can throw them out now. Otherwise, we're gonna let him retire and have a nice warm cup of tea and crawl into bed. And we wish you a speedy recovery. And you assured me yesterday it's not COVID, not that we could catch it over the web, but we care about you, and we're glad that you just got the
if
common.
I make I can end up with a joke. Probably mine will be the hottest presentation because my temperature is over 100 Fahrenheit right now.
Well, the Italians are hot-blooded, so we'll chalk it up to that. One of the common complaints that one of our viewers here writes, one of the common complaints I hear is that it's difficult to access the grant money that pictures qualify for, such as the Venice Film Fund or the Venezia Film Fund. Are you familiar with that?
Not really. The Venice Film Fund, yeah, it's one of the Film Commission. Probably each of them has local rules. Probably some of them are more complicated than others. Certainly, Venice is not one of the top one, meaning that they do not have the same, let's say, number of productions like in Rome or Piedmont or Naples. Okay, so maybe that is a reason why they are less responsive, less flexible, or they are less, let's say, friendly to the foreign producer. That's my explanation.
And in filming in locations, are there? I guess each jurisdiction has their own rules about how to get permits, what's allowed, what's not.
Yeah.
And the film commissions in Italy, you said there's really an effort to make that accessible and easy to understand. They should contact the film commission, and Italy actually has 20 unique film commissions that all kind of coordinate and work together as one under this rubric for the different territories.
Yes.
And there's an encouragement to kind of see all of Italy and get the whole flavor and not just focus on Rome and the usual suspects for where people film.
You saw probably the latest James Bond film that was shooted in Matera, which is this very ancient town. Of course, in Italy, I don't know if this applies also to other countries. If you occupy the public soil, so to say, like roads or squares or something, you normally have to pay a certain amount. But certain smaller cities, for instance, they give up this payment because they want to attract film production to make their city better known. Certainly, this normally doesn't apply to Rome or Venice, but if you go to smaller town, that can be an advantage also. You do not pay anything.
Terrific. All right. So work with the film commissions and the local film commissioners, and if there's a deal to be made, producers have wheelers and dealers. They can negotiate and see what deals are available there.
Absolutely.
Massimo, thank you so much. Get a nice hot cup of tea.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience and understanding. Okay.
And hope to see you in Rome soon once travel fully opens up.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. Let's move on to our...
Yeah, I'm back.
our fellow expert from China, and let me just bring up his PowerPoint. So, what time is it in Beijing right now, Dong?
Well, it's 36. This is midnight.
Well, then we so appreciate you joining us year after year, and let me bring up your PowerPoint. And Dong is with the Chamzon law firm. As I said, there's been probably more changes in China and its relation to the global film industry. More changes with that than probably any other territory. I think as I said, the stuff we were talking about 4 years ago in Shanghai, when times were still robust and very friendly, are very different. Dong will hopefully talk about that and talk about not only the political changes, but the changes as a result of the pandemic as well. So let me put on your share screen and turn it over to my good friend Dong Wang.
Thank you, David. Thank you for inviting me to join this seminar. I'm very happy to meet and discuss with lawyer friends around the world. It's been a difficult time in past 2 or 3 years for everybody. It's almost impossible to travel, especially internationally. And yeah, everybody has been impacted in a way. Almost all the industry has been impacted, especially the entertainment industry in China. Well, the pandemic broke out in China in 2020. And that year was very bad for almost all the industry, especially for the first half of the year 2020. Few people really went to the cinema. The numbers dropped hugely. You will see that a little bit later. Since came back much better in year 2021. We can look at the number of theatrical release. If you see the number in 2020, it dropped by 40%. In year 2021, the release rebounded. Actually, it's better than the number, even better than the year 2019. So if we come to the next slide, David, this is the number about the attendance and the session in cinema. So the session, yeah, the attendance, see, if you look at number 2020, dropped like almost 70%. Like just really, just few people really went to cinema. The session dropped, just let me check, yeah. Oh, no, not yet, David. David.
Where do you want me, Dong? You want the one back?
Yeah, let's go back, yeah, let's go back.
Okay. That one or this one?
Earlier, keep going back. Back. Yeah, this one.
The number of theatrical releases changed from in 2019, we had 611 theatrical releases. It dropped to 365 in 2020, but it came back even bigger than 2019 and 2021.
Right. This is that's a release. Let's come to the next page, David.
Okay, attendance and sessions in cinema.
Right.
And again, we see the a profound drop in 2020, but it comes back pretty strong in 2021.
Exactly. It's in 21 it was much better.
But you're telling me that it's still the box office in theaters, there's a drop, even though the films are coming back. And people, you see the 2019 numbers in theater, 64 billion. In 2021, it doubled what 2020 was, but it's still only at 47 billion. And you're saying that there's a seismic shift, that people just aren't going to theaters. Your theaters are completely empty. Is that correct?
Well, even today, even the year to 2021, even the situation was much better than 2020. People were still unwilling to go to cinema as they used to do, because people are still worried, and because the cinema is kind of closed area, closed space. People feel it's easier to get infected if you sit in a closed space. So that's why the number in 2021 is much better than 2020, but still is not back to the number like 2019.
Yeah. And the other thing that we can see in this import of foreign movies chart is the drastic decrease of the number of foreign movies that are showing in China. I mean, in 2021, you're just down to 7.5% are non-Chinese, and the majority of movies that are being released, 92% of them are domestic.
Right.
Is this? Can you account? I mean, so gone are the days. I mean, are you? Well, I guess you're still getting the Marvel films that come in, and but it was 4 years ago. Make sure you have a Chinese cast member. Put in some type of Chinese content. Throw Shanghai into your movie somewhere because you want to play to the Chinese market. Is that pretty much dead now? Should U.S. filmmakers not be adopting that philosophy?
Right. I wouldn't say pretty much dead, because it's not that kind of the mood is quite different. Yeah, let's come to the. I'll talk about why the foreign films decreasing. The main reason is that the protocol expired, and
can you explain what the protocol was concerning foreign films?
Well, there used to be like a minimum requirement for the import movie under the WTO arrangement, but there were like two agreements for that purpose. But those two agreements expired. When
did they expire, Dom?
Yeah, look at the one is called U.S.-China Film Agreement. This one expired in 2017. The other one is the Film Import and Distribution Agreement. This one expired in 2020. As a result, the imported movie dropped from 34 to 20 a year. So it's a big drop. Let's come to the next page. Yeah. And also there's some other reasons that cause the foreign films to decrease. For example, there are controversies on about popular Western movies, like the ideology, racial issues, violence, and bloodshed, and inappropriate remarks of directors, actors, something like that.
Sexual issues in there as well, homosexuality, things like that.
No, sexual. That's not as big.
That's not a problem. Okay,
right.
But like certain horror films, if it involves the occult or witchcraft, is a no-no in China. Am I correct?
Right. That is a good example. There's the example like there's a movie called Shang-Chi and Fu Manchu. I don't know whether you have seen that movie.
I have not.
Okay.
But I
People
mean,
say,
I've heard of Dr. Fu Manchu.
yeah, people say it's a pretty popular movie in the United States. It's about Chinese in the United States, but it is not imported to China because of the image is kind of is strongly disliked by Chinese in China. So this is not imported into China, although it's a movie totally by Chinese in the United States. So,
And I know also that there was a major arbitration that cost several, just a lot of money. You would think of arbitration as being an inexpensive, quick way of resolving disputes. There was a major private arbitration concerning the financing of the original John Wick with pre-sale money from China that the filmmakers had applied to the film and used it, but the film did not pass the censorship in China because, as Dong has pointed out, the government is against violence and bloodshed. And I think the death count in John Wick was, well in the hundreds. It plays out as a movie version of a video game with the amount of killings that appeared there. So that when the Chinese distributor asked for their money back, the producer said, "Sorry, we already spent it." And there was some debate over whether they needed to take it or not, and whether it really didn't pass Chinese censorship. And after a very long, involved arbitration, the conclusion was, look, this is what Chinese censorship is about, and that money was contingent on it, and you should have had some type of contingency or safeguard to protect that money, because it really wasn't yours to have until this condition precedent was satisfied. So that's just one example of how the censorship can play out even at the beginning of movies when you're collecting your financing.
Right. I think that can be a good example for the future. But censorship is very unexpected. You don't know what's going to happen if it comes to censorship. So is it possible to have kind of insurance for that in the first place when we start shooting the movie, or like when they structure the movie?
I'm told that you can kind of find insurance for just about anything. You find the right gambler, although the insurance companies usually are savvy with their bets, and I think they're probably going to have the best understanding of those censorship things. And if they think it's a losing bet, you're probably not going to find insurance. As I always say, the insurance companies love taking premiums. They just hate paying out on the policies, and that's kind of the whole reason why you take the policy in the first place. Dong, let's talk about getting money out of China to invest in a film. We hear about all these these big power players in China, these billionaires that have money to burn. They want to invest in Hollywood. That's not such an easy endeavor, and it's getting even more difficult as the relationships chill between the US and China. Can you talk a little bit about representing investors in China that want to put money in the US?
Well, you're right. For certain time, like probably the 3 or 4 years ago, there was a kind of wave for the new rich Chinese to invest in the movie industry or entertainment, even to invest in the movies in the United States. But it's not the case any longer. Those new rich, they have found that it's not easy to make money out of the film production. So they have most of the cases they have stopped burning money in that area, and also it is difficult to get approval to invest in a film project out of China. So it's in this respect, it's totally different picture today than 3 or 4 years ago.
And one story, I won't embarrass the large firm that it involved, but one of my clients originally had gone to one of the really big major firms in Los Angeles to handle their investment. They were going to get, there was a contract and all this money was supposed to come to China into their film. They were going to use my firm just to do some of the production council work, but they wanted the big firm to do the finance, and they racked up easily a 5-figure bill, substantial one in trying to, the law firm trying to get this money to come from China into the US. And my client was talking on the phone just in passing, saying, hey, you're really not responsible in the financing stuff, but here's my situation. I think it was actually in my office. I said, hold on. And I got Dong on WeChat and explained the situation, and Dong got the company's name that would sign the contract. And he just in the course of the phone call, in 45 seconds, he said, this is a state-owned company. By law, there is no way in hell they are allowed to have that money leave China and come into this country. I don't know who with that company signed it, but it's an impossibility, and there's no reason to spend any more money on legal time. It just cannot be done. The contract, you should just be ripped up. The government's never going to go for it. The government owns this company. Whoever signed it, just did not have the authority to do that. And we really got the answer for this guy in about 4 minutes of what he'd been spending probably about $20,000 or more with his large law firm, trying to navigate the maze and thinking that somehow they were going to get the money in. And Dong's like, look, I'm here, I'm in Beijing. And in fact, I think that's what initiated the call. I said, hey, Dong, can you use some hometown favors to get this through? And he just looked at it and said, nobody in the world can utilize any favors and make this happen. So again, that kind of points to what Massimo had said earlier about it's good when you're doing production council, film financing, to incorporate with a local hometown lawyer who knows the rules of the road and can advise you on some of the custom and practices that you're not going to find on the web, that you're not going to find in a statute book or in case law, and who knows the different players and how to get things done. And for those of you who do ever have the opportunity to get to China to do financing, Dong has always been my go-to guy in Beijing, and has a really sound understanding of how things work and how the wheels can move and best give them a push to lawfully make them move in the right direction. So just a little bit more that you'll be able to see in Dong's PowerPoint about where the direction is going with the Chinese film industry. Reasons for them not going to the cinema, worried about the pandemic is number one.
Right.
But you said it's really a cultural shift that they're very happy with streamers and just staying at home and watching their content.
Especially for young people, like they are with their computer, the cell phone all day long. Just so they almost have everything through the streamer. So it's really so that's down the road for the future. The film industry will have strong competition from the streaming media platform and the portable playing devices.
And you said Netflix doesn't have a presence in China, or a very small one, and it's Alibaba is the big streamer.
Yeah, Alibaba, Tencent, they are the big streamer. They are also public company. They're a public company in New York. So they're dominant in China, and we see the film industry will have the further innovation and extension in film shooting and technology and cinema terminal technology. And we will have film rating system down the road.
I'm not familiar with audio stereoscopy. I guess that's like the next Dolby sound system, or what is that?
Actually, I don't know. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't
you just
quite,
got in there as one
yeah,
of the things in the
it's
future.
quite new stuff. Yeah, I'm not
And-
into that kind of new
And
stuff.
and the copyright, I mean, with the streamers, are the Chinese paying for their streaming services as the cultural understanding that copyright actually is intellectual property is as much a piece of property as your tangible radio or the home you live in? Are they starting to respect intellectual property a bit more, or what?
Right. The protection of IP right has proved hugely, I would say, a lot in past year, in last 5 years. The government has attached huge importance to that because this is the intellectual property has become the may become the engine of the Chinese economy down the road. So it has got much better protection today, and I'm very happy with that. It's very different from the year when I just started my practice. At that time, it was literally no IP protection at all, no such concept. Now it's very different.
And we have a question here, Dong, that says the original US-China film agreement was made after the WTO dispute settlement body decided China's foreign domestic distinction in film exhibition violated the WTO's non-discrimination requirement. The agreement expanded the import quota from 20 to 34. Do you anticipate further proceedings at the WTO now that the quota has been reduced back down to 20?
Well, at least so far, there haven't any new agreement reached yet between China and the United States, or under the WTO framework.
Got it.
It is the political situation between China and the US is not that great. So I think the negotiation for film industry is less important than like the trading or like investment or other issues. I believe there will be new agreements, and there will be more foreign movies to be imported to China, but we have to wait. People still like foreign movies for sure. You young people, it still has good market potentials, but the structure is not here yet. But now we have to wait for a new structure, deeper structure for that.
And if you're filming in China, if you're so like Dong shared with me that you really don't have any union issues, it's the way in which you hire actors is you find the actors and you negotiate, and there's no IATSE, there's no SAG.
No issue, no union at all. No such concept for union.
Well, I think the government would say the entire country is one big union, right?
Yeah. Right.
So, well, thank you so much as always. We're going to keep this moving. I know it's super late where you are, so if you need to sign off, we won't hold that against you. I know you have a little girl at home and a lovely wife. And I would say to anyone that if you're ever in Beijing, look Dong up, because he will point you in the direction to one particular restaurant that has the best Peking duck in the world, and really fresh, really crispy. And even if you don't like duck, he'll make you a duck lover.
I'll be very happy. I look forward to having friends from foreign countries as soon as possible, because the country has been kind of locked down for so long. So we need to have new people to come over.
And he also knows a great pizza joint in Shanghai. So,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
thanks,
Okay.
thanks, Don.
Well,
Let's
thank you again. Thank you for the invitation. Nice talking to you, everybody. Okay.
always, thank you.
Okay.
And we're now going to go to Bill Grantham and go to across the world to Ireland. And I am going to, I will run your PowerPoint, Bill, and you just let me know when it's best to hit the next slide, and I will be your remote control. So
Great.
Take it away, Bill.
Thank you, David. Let me just say about these slides. When a slide comes up, just keep on pushing the down button because I've done this rather theatrical thing where the captions come down in one after the other. Just if you keep on pressing down the down button, there you are.
Got it.
For each one, what I would do is just go to the end of the slide rather than having me queuing in each. There we go. I'm just doing some introductory stuff about Ireland. Just want to go back there. I'm just doing some introductory stuff about Ireland because, you know, it's a small country. Lots of people don't know much about it. Naturally, in Ireland, we think everybody knows everything about us, but, you know, lots of people don't. And so that's where it is. It's right on the edge of the European Union, 27 countries. And the European Union is also, the way it's been adding countries, it's basically been moving east. So the geographical center of the European Union keeps on moving further east. So Ireland keeps on being more peripheral to that, but it has these benefits. It's a country, it has very strong connections to the USA. You know, this statistic is always thrown out. 40 million people in the USA claim that they're of Irish descent. So strong historical and cultural links. It's mainly English speaking. It's small. It's about the size and population of Indiana, but it's pretty well educated, and that's been getting better for the last few years. 42% of over 15s have third level, that's university level education, or post secondary school level education. If you were to say that about, if you were to look at a statistic for, let's say, 15 to 40-year-olds, will be an even higher percentage. So well-educated population and a growing population. The country was very depopulated for many reasons. Now it's had a 55% growth in the last 50-odd years. So it's still a small country, but it positions itself as between Europe and the USA for a lot of things, including the film business. We can go on to the next slide, please. And we can just, you know, I say this, and I'm sorry for people who know this already, but a lot of people don't realize that actually,
I got you.
A lot of people don't realize there are two jurisdictions in Ireland. There's what we call, where I am, the Republic of Ireland, 26 counties. It's been independent for 100 years as a member of the European Union. The name game I won't go into, but you can actually piss people off if you call it the wrong thing. But very often the reason they think you're calling it the wrong thing is actually a spurious reason. Don't worry about it. But in the south, the Republic of Ireland, we have 5 million people, roughly. We have a new census just was done a couple of weeks ago. That number is probably going up. 6 counties in the northeast of the country are part of the UK. Northern Ireland, it's been separately governed from the with its own government since 1920. It's because Britain left the European Union. It is no longer a member of the EU. It's a province of the United Kingdom, and it has a population of about 2 million. So those are the two jurisdictions. The important thing to bear in mind is they are actually two separate legal systems. Northern Ireland and the UK, it's a little bit like state law versus federal law. So it has its own legal system, and it has also, you know, an overarching UK legal system. Yeah, we can go on. Just getting this nonsense out of the way, but just so you have that in the back of your mind. This is quite an interesting slide. This is 10 years of film production in Ireland, film and television production, and the increases in how much money is being spent on film and television production in Ireland. And if you kind of look at the green arrowed sections on the right-hand side, in 10 years, over 200% increase in money coming into filmed animation, 850% increase in money coming in from abroad for the making of feature films, and 200 of, oh, sorry, we just lost it there. All right, 200+% of money coming in for TV drama. So it's an enormous, and the reason that's happened is partly because of tax incentives, and partly because there's actually been a government agency, a screen commission, whose job is to get people in. So it's a very, very substantial increase in the amount of money being spent on the ground in Ireland just in 10 years. What's happening in Ireland is the same as everywhere else. The increase in television production worldwide has come to Ireland. US series like Vikings, some of you may know Vikings, it's an MGM series. It was produced for 6 seasons in Ireland. They made 89 episodes. That keeps the studio full for 6 years. And there's now a sequel to Vikings called Vikings Valhalla. It's not as many episodes per season, but it's still a big production. It's keeping the same studio full now for 2 seasons, and they've just started filming a 3rd season. So we'll go on to the next slide. I'm mentioning this because television fills up studios. There's a studio in Limerick called Troy Studios, which had the season 1 of the Apple TV Plus series called Foundation, which was based on the Isaac Asimov novels, a science fiction series. Filled the studios, basically kept everybody busy for the best part of 2 years. They're moving on to, I think, Prague for various reasons, but it looks like there's a big movie coming in there. But these television series fill the studio full time. In other words, once the studio's got a TV series in, the studio is not available for anything else. Now, this is a quick rundown of film and TV incentives, tax incentives available in Ireland, principally tax incentives. We just lost it there. I think we got overexcited. It was the amounts of money are so huge, we fainted. So, I mean, you can look at these for yourself, but okay. So we'll just go back to the Republic of Ireland, the previous slide. Just go back. Right, here we are. So this is the Republic of Ireland. I mean, I've given you links so you can go and look this stuff up yourself. But the key thing is there's a tax credit of 32% on qualifying expenditure for film and TV production. Now, in Europe generally, we throw out these numbers, 32%, 25%, 20% in different jurisdictions. The thing you always have to bear in mind is because of an overarching European co-production treaty, which is not an EU thing, it's through a different and bigger body called the Council of Europe, which is a loose association of nearly all the countries of Europe except for Belarus and now Russia, who've been kind of pushed to one side. It has a co-production convention which everybody follows, and the limit on the amount of expenditure that can qualify for a tax credit in any one European country is 80%. So these numbers, 32%, 25%, 20%, are always of 80% and not of 100% of the budget. That's to encourage co-production. You can get incentives for 100% of your budget, but you have to co-produce in at least 2 countries to get there. So that's a general thing, but it applies to Ireland. So it's 32% of 80%. Now I say in the slide it's 32 to 35%, and I did see a question in the Q&A about this. There is a thing in Ireland called the regional uplift. Most production in Ireland takes place in the capital city, Dublin, and in the rural hinterland of Dublin. There is some production takes place elsewhere. In order to boost production elsewhere in the country, they introduced a so-called regional uplift, where on top of the 32%, you can get a bit more. Last year, when of course, because of COVID, no production took place, it was 4%. This year it's 3%. Next year it's 2%. The year after it's 1%. I mean, I really wouldn't bother about it, but it might be that you have a burning reason to shoot a film in County Leitrim, and you can benefit from the extra few bucks of the budget. There are direct subsidies from the screen agency, which is called Screen Ireland. They favor Irish production, but they certainly have pushed money in Hollywood's direction when it was in their interest to do so. There's additional support available from the broadcasting regulator. That's very much for Irish originated production. But, on a good day with a fair wind, it might be another purse you can, dip your hand into. And the broadcasters do come up with some money, mainly just a pre-acquisition of Irish broadcasting rights. Not a lot of money, under six figures, but it's there, and why turn it away? So we can go to the next slide. Oh, yeah, and there are some miscellaneous supports, and I've actually had a look at this. I mean, I was working once on a budget for Ireland where we thought, where there was a good chance of shaking down the tourism agencies for some money. So hook up with the right people who know the conditions on the ground, and there may be, depending on the project, there may be bits of money that you can actually dip into. This is the Northern Ireland setup. The Northern Ireland is under the UK scheme, which is at 25%. The definition of qualifying expenditure in the UK is a bit more liberal. For instance, if you are an American film with a US screenplay, the money you have spent on the US writer, it does not qualify for the tax credit in the Republic of Ireland. It does qualify in Northern Ireland. What you have to do is you set up an SPV in the UK, you assign the rights in the screenplay to the SPV, and that SPV is deemed to be part of the movie, and you're allowed to charge those costs of the rights to the tax credit. So 25% could be 25% of a bigger number than 32% in the Republic of Ireland. The second thing is that Northern Ireland Screen, which is the regional film agency in Belfast, they give more generous direct subsidies. And what they try to do for a film that could go to the Republic of Ireland, they try to put up the difference between what you would get in the Republic of Ireland, 32%, against the 25% from Northern Ireland as a direct grant. So Northern Ireland Screen, and they've had big series there. They've had, Titanic, not Titanic, the Titanic studios had, what's it called? The medieval series. Why am I suddenly blanking on the name? Anybody remember? Sorry,
Game of Thrones?
Huge series.
Game of Thrones?
Game of Thrones, excuse me. That's my old age. I blanked on it. Game of Thrones, huge series in Northern Ireland. They've had some big feature films, studio films as well. There are some money from the broadcasters, similar things to the Republic. So you can keep going, David. Yeah. Right, studios. This is actually the big story at the moment. And I'm sorry if the writing on this slide is a bit small, because I've already set the scene. The demand for studio space is going up. I mentioned Foundation as a good example, because they were using these extraordinary LED screens, which are being used everywhere now, which mean that you don't really need to, especially on a science fiction series where you've got, moonscapes and you're out in outer space and things like that. You don't need to go out on location so much. And so, but it also means that studio in Ireland is, say, competing with a studio in the Dominican Republic, because you can just put the same screens in and, and do the same filming. But but it does mean that there is something of a shift to filming on locations. And Ireland, of course, has very beautiful locations, which you've seen in a zillion films, to filming in studios. We have at the moment in the Republic of Ireland in the south, we have basically 3 large-ish studios, and the details are there. Ardmore Studios, which is the original Irish studio in just south of Dublin. The studio Ashford Studios, which is where they do the Vikings movies, that's south of Ardmore, and a studio called Troy Studios, which is in Limerick, which is in the south west of the country, really not very well located, but has managed to fill itself quite well with Foundation, a prior series called Night Flyers. The word is that the sequel to Denis Villeneuve's Dune may be coming to Troy, although there's obviously lots of competition there. But having done Foundation successfully, they've shown that they can, take a major science fiction production. So,
and can you tell? Let me just interrupt. When you talked about we're going to use a green screen, we could do it in Ireland, we could do it in the DR.
Yeah.
How does the labor translate without the tax credit? Just in terms of the dollar exchange with
Sure.
with hiring people.
Let's go back and just pull up that. Let's go back to the.
One more.
Okay. Ireland has unions. It has craft unions. It has below the line unions. It has above the line unions. However, it doesn't have the deals. It doesn't have the collective bargaining agreement that exists in the United States. So there are no residuals in Ireland, for instance. Now, SAG actors may insist on going in on rule number 1 and may obtain residuals, but there are basically no residuals. Also, the rates are comparatively somewhat lower than even, say, the UK next door. An example, I have a neighbor a few doors down who was working as a sort of head of department on Foundation. They had to go to the Canary Islands for some location shooting. There was a shortage of qualified people to go out with her, so she had to pull in a pal from London who was subordinate to her, in her department, but working for her as the boss. He got paid more money than she got because the London rates are higher. So, without getting into the exchange rates, as you know, the dollar is bouncing around like a yo-yo, which is always an issue. You can try and buy ahead and hedge in various ways against fluctuations in the dollar, but you always run into that. The rates in Ireland are not the lowest in the world, but they're competitive. I just want to say, so we have, the key number here on this slide is the final number, 228,000 square feet of studios. Now, just for context, I just had this, I was in New Orleans a couple of weeks ago speaking about some of this stuff, and there were the New Orleans Film Commissioner was there, and also some people from the state of Georgia. And it turns out that New Orleans has more studio space than the Republic of Ireland. Georgia has more studio space than the Republic of Ireland. So these numbers, they seem very large. They're not that large. The question is, what's going to happen next? And this is where we're going to the next slide.
And we need to just kind of bring it along a little bit more, Bill, for the other speakers. So,
all right, there are four new studio that are going to be under construction in the next 2 years. The key numbers are, and we'll go on to the next slide for this. Well, 943, we missed it, it's my fault. 943,000 square feet. So we have 225,000 square feet planned in the next 3 years. 943,000 square feet of new studios with very solid backing. Greystone's Media Campus, the one in the middle there, the back of their Hackman Capital Partners, some of you may know about them. For most of you, many of you, including entertainment lawyers who experience this business, they're probably invisible to you. They are in 120 studios or studio projects around the world. They are absolutely enormous. They are hooked up with a New York source of capital, square mile capital management. Hackman, they are going to be the 600-pound gorilla of studio space in the future. They already own Ardmore and Troy, 2 of the 3 studios in Ireland. They're planning to build 276,000 square feet and 7 sound stages in Greystones, which is right next to Ardmore, expanding to 670,000 square feet. That one studio will be 3 times the size of the existing Irish studio space, and I think they have the capital to do it. We can go on to the next slide.
But of course, they need the people, the experienced crew to man that, which is something we're seeing around the world, a demand of.
And I'm going on very quickly. There are studios in Northern Ireland as well. I've already mentioned those, 247,000 square feet. We can keep going. So it's a huge, huge increase in capacity. 400% in the Republic of Ireland. If you include Northern Ireland as part of the business, which it is, I should have said, you know, I've done this. I've worked on a film that, say, shoots at a studio in Belfast, does its post-production in Dublin. You dip into the tax incentives for Northern Ireland for the shoot, and you dip into the tax incentives for the Republic for post-production. And remembering what I said about the 80% rule, by doing it in 2 countries, in 2 jurisdictions, you're able to get your tax incentive on 100%.
Great, and now, we need you just to bring it on home. Tell us the trends in the future,
okay,
and tips for filming in Ireland, real quick.
This is the big thing. We know, I don't need to tell you guys about the growing power of the streamers. It's my view that we will, because the streamers all over the world are entering into exclusive deals with particular studios, that we will end up with some kind of 2-tier system where there'll be some studios, a bit like Ashford and Vikings, which are basically booked out for 8 years. You know, I mean, they haven't done any business with anybody else for 8 years. And then there'll be they'll be doing Netflix, HBO Max, Disney, Amazon Prime, Apple TV business exclusively. And then there'll be the other studios who are fighting for all the other business. It's actually quite hard to raise money to construct studios because because financiers tend to use a real estate model and want to anchor tenants. Now, Netflix, Amazon, etc., can be anchor tenants for financing the building of new studios, which is quite an interesting new development. I think the huge issue in a small country like Ireland is going to be crewing. If we go from having three studios, basically medium-sized studios, to having 400% more space in just 3 years. We're a small country. We only have 7 million people in both parts of the country. Where are we going to find the crews? Crewing is already an issue. Not only the availability of crews, but the quality of crews, the depth of the crews. You can have excellent heads of department. You can have very good people who are like working for them, but getting down to the next level, the grunts on the ground, it's hard to find good people. And I think it's going to be challenging for Ireland. The one thing that Ireland has done well in the last 30 years, and we've seen it particularly in the animation field, is putting money into training. But the question is, can they train people fast enough? Now, under the EU and our deals with the United Kingdom, we can bring in people from other countries. So just as people come in, you know, people notoriously, people from Texas poured into Louisiana and were surreptitiously rebadged as Louisianans so they could work on Louisiana production. We can legitimately do that, bring in people from Germany or England or wherever, you know, to crew our things. But everybody's going to be doing that at the same time. It's going to be a challenge. Thank you, Bill.
Really appreciate it. That was a lot of information. And even though we're going to go from Europe to Latin America, I think you're going to see a dovetail of a lot of the exact same issues. Two small countries, both committed to filming, both with very vibrant film commissions. And speaking of vibrant, here is that vibrant film commissioner from Dominican Republic. Marianna, tell us all we need to know about filming in your country and what is available to us.
Well, thank you, David. Thank you for having me once again. So the DR, as you already mentioned, is quite active lately. During the pandemic, it became more active than ever. Our industry is thriving. Our numbers have increased exponentially. And it's basically due to what we have to offer. Tax incentives, our crew depth is not as big as in other jurisdictions. And similar to what Bill was mentioning, due to the increase of the demand of crew, we have some sort of shortage. Then we have filming facilities. We have the Pinewood Studios here with an amazing water tank, a quite unique offer in the region. And also we were able to implement in due time the COVID protocols. And that actually permitted us to become some sort of safe space and create safety bubbles similar to what Massimo was explaining that what they did in Italy. In fact, we opened up for production basically within 3 months after the pandemic started. Our first foreign production was M. Night Shyamalan's Old, and after that, we didn't even stop. So in terms of production incentives, we have basically two set of incentives. One is basically for the Dominican productions, which allows us to fully finance the Dominican pictures. There's not a legal cap, but there's a widely accepted cap of $2.5 million, the equivalent. And the way it works, it's basically the government says instead of paying us 25% of the payable corporate tax, basically use it to finance films. There are certain restrictions in terms of the ownership, that investors or taxpayers can have over the IP or the picture itself, and how the financing goes into the picture. But then for foreign productions, which has been the attractive part to bring in foreign productions, we have a 25% transferable tax credit, which is applicable to eligible spend. And the base of our eligible spend is quite broad. There's a floor of $500,000, but there's no cap. And it applies to TV series and films. I'll explain later on with a little more detail on how it's designed. And there are also two other incentives. It's basically a VAT exemption on certain goods and services, and also an exemption on import duties whenever you have to bring in equipment from abroad, which is not available in our country. So in terms of the tax credit, as I said, it applies to feature films, documentaries, TV series, miniseries, music videos. So as long as the minimum spend is $500,000, you can apply. No cap. Interestingly, and very different to other jurisdictions, foreign labor, the compensation paid to foreign labor that works in the DR is also, can you go back? Okay, thank you. The compensation paid to foreign labor that works from the DR is an eligible spend. And there is a reduced 1.5% tax withholding whenever that payment is made abroad. There is a registration requirement, but that's a very simple process that's always taken care of by the local production service company with us. And there is an audit requirement. And of course, as well as most jurisdictions, there's an enroller credit requirement.
Marianna, I want to go back because this is really important, particularly for the attorneys out there that are advising their clients and production counsel that deals with talent attorneys and talent attorneys that may be listening, is that loan out withholding, that whatever you're paying your actors, 1.5% has to be paid in a tax to the Dominican Republic. It has to be withheld. And that discussion needs to be had at the time of negotiation with the actor, because they get really upset when they say, what happened to 1.5% of my money that it was supposed to get? He said, well, that was a tax. And if it's not fully explained to them, you're going to get a lot of whining and pushback from the talent. Marianna, do you want to talk a little bit more about that and
Well,
why
I think
that
you made
1.5 is important to producers and how it kind of comes back?
I think you explained it perfectly. So at the end of the day, it's a benefit for the producer, the fact that that expense is eligible towards the tax credit. But as you mentioned, it's very important just to manage the expectations and to be fully transparent with that foreign cast and crew that comes into our country and works in our country, but it's paid from the DR. So it's just a simple 1.5% that's withheld by the local SPV. Through which all the expenses have to go through basically to get the tax credit. And then that local SPV pays it to the tax authorities. It's a very simple and transparent process.
And this is something that this is a negotiation point. I don't know if a lot of talent attorneys if they're not familiar with the DR, understand where negotiations can take place with production counsel. And the same thing for your production counsel, you want to know what wiggle room you have. Because if you're a talent attorney and you understand that by the production withholding 1.5% from your actor and paying that tax, they are getting, you know, their full money and then some. They're getting that entire attorney's paycheck. 27% of it is coming back as a tax refund. So 25%. So I think what you want to say, if you're a talent, say, hey, we'll pay it, but we want to see it back on the end when you're getting your tax refund. How about, you know, giving us a little nod, something back, realizing that we're playing ball and that by this tax being withheld, you're getting a windfall in there. It's a negotiation point for both production counsel and for talent attorneys, and it's one that's, you know, under the radar. It's not simply just, you know, writing, most favored nations or, the size of the trailer and approval rights. It's real money, and it's a little intricate with that tax payment. I just want to call that attention as a real practical tip for those who are watching.
I just wanted to say, David, that's a very good point. And you know, there's withholding tax in most EU jurisdictions, including Ireland as well, and it's something that does create tension and is absolutely worth raising.
And
so, yeah.
could continue, Marianna, as I look at some of the questions that are coming in as well.
Sure. So as I mentioned, we have our offers, basically the incentives, our crew depth, but also our locations and filming facilities. Most of the productions we have shooting here are on location because we offer diverse type of locations: beaches, mountains, deserts, jungle. But we've seen a trend, a very high increase in the demand of studio space to complement that on location shooting. The biggest studio we have, as I mentioned, is Spinal Deer Studio, which owns also a water tank. 65,000 square foot exterior water tank, the horizon view, an amazing one. The most recent picture that was shot and that has already been released is Sandra Bullock's and Channing Tatum's Lost City of D. Well, that picture was fully shot in the Dominican Republic. It used studio space at Pinewood, but it also used the water tank.
And the most interesting feature of the water tank, aside from it being state of the art and really big and lots of different scuba equipment and portals to film in, is it does not use a traditional green screen like you would see at Universal Studios to project the ocean. It's built up against the ocean, so it's like an infinity pool. The ocean is your green screen, and it can match up perfectly. So it really has the effect that you're out in the middle of the ocean, because it's not a green screen. It's the real deal, like an infinity pool. One more question, Marianna. What does the 27% or 25% withholding on the loan out? Could you just explain that a little bit more? There was a question about what is it 27 or is it 25?
Tax credit is at 25. So payments paid abroad, is a 27%. However, there is an exemption for foreign cast and crew that they get a reduced amount. So let's say if you have to rent equipment abroad, but you decide to rent it from the Dominican Republic through the Dominican SPV, through which you'll funnel all the production expenses to make it qualifying, just be aware that whenever you make that payment, there's a 27%. It's not a cast and crew.
And then you're going to talk about the crew and service providers. You have
Exactly. So yeah, as I mentioned, we do have crew depth. It's not, again, similarly to Ireland, we're a small country. Our crew numbers are increasing, but it's not as big as probably in some of the most popular states in like Atlanta, like Georgia, sorry, or Louisiana.
And you said you're developing some programs to train crews. You're developing those. The film commission is working to enhance that. Yes, we are. We've approached other film commissions with plenty of experience doing that, especially European ones. And we're also partnered up with Latin America Training Center, a Brazilian entity that has a lot of short courses and some sort of boot camps to form or to train our crew. Similarly to Ireland, now the question is how fast can we get our crew trained considering the high demand? So also I'd like to stress out the fact that we have, well, during the pandemic, we have also seen an increase of specialized vendors like MBS. Well, they've established themselves in the DR because they saw the high demand of these type of services, and which has been also great for us because it provides comfort to foreign productions that use these type of vendors when shooting in the States, for instance. Now that you pull up that slide, we've seen that the Dominican productions using our incentives, and this is the, not just to specify, not the foreign productions, has, well, last year, it continued its path as it was in 2019. We saw a drop in 2020, but it's not as material as you would have expected. And for the first quarter of 2022, we see that the path that we had last year might continue, which is great. We are putting out 44 films per year, and that's a very decent amount of national films. Or in terms of foreign productions, there has been, as I said, an increase in the amount of foreign productions using our tax credits. Can you go back? Sorry, just to, can you go back to the last slide? Okay, so that one, yeah. So this year, only this year, no, it's the next one, sorry. I just want to show how many pictures are using our tax credits, foreign pictures. So only in the first trimester of this year, we've had 5 pictures using our tax credits, and the projections we're seeing is that we'll most likely end with a similar number or higher by the end of this year. But the most interesting part for me to see is the foreign spend. So we're a jurisdiction that at most would handle the $55 million in foreign production spent. And during the pandemic, there was an uptick, as you can see, of 172. I think that number is a little higher. It's around the $200 million. Does not include Leslie, I think. And this year, in the first trimester, as you can see, it's around $71 million. So the amount of foreign spend we're getting is very high compared to previous years. In terms of trends, I think we've seen similar trends to the ones I explained last year. So tax credits are used to monetize, to be monetized and used as a source of funding for the film to be financed. We're still seeing foreign banks using our tax credits as a collateral
Also, well, you know, the standard package, security package also is quite common, the share pledge, the operational account agreement. So we've seen that trend, I've explained last year, repeat itself this year in terms
And
of the
again,
financing
not
structure.
not heavily unionized.
We don't have unions.
And in addition to the dollar exchange, the minimum wages and things are also substantially less. So you get a lot of bang for your buck on crew, not only from the tax credit, but from just the cost of everything, including the cost of hotels and stuff like that. A very friendly film commission, willing to help, can point you in the right direction, can serve as your location scouts and everything else. And the Pinewood Studios there, Lantica, has some of the most impressive living quarters, not far from the studios. They have a relationship where you, the condominiums, it's like this amazing beach complex, like going to a Club Med, where all your actors can be put up. And I know they were kind enough to put me up there when I was out on some business, and it was a wonderful experience. So the DR is a place to consider. Thank you so much. Anything unique about the Droit Morale other than like the other guy? I know Bill. I know Mark is going to talk about it a bit with Canada. It's you have the similar laws to Ireland and Canada that you respect the creatives' rights. Is that correct?
Yes,
There's
yes.
some Droit
We
Morale.
do have moral rights, but the defense of those rights at the courtroom is the responsibility by law of the producer. So at the end of the day, as soon as if it's a work for hire, there's not much to it. So you end up assigning it.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, we're going to speed along here. I'm sorry, we're a little bit behind. That's the beauty of a webinar. Those of you that are able to stick around during your Saturday, we might go a little bit longer because we've got so many great speakers here. And Mark, do you want me to do your slideshow, or do you have the capacity to put it up? I can do it. We need you to unmute, and why don't I just do it for you if that's the easiest and quickest. Say hello to Mark Edwards from old Canada.
Okay, so not quite sure what you're going to be showing here, David.
Oh, wait,
but
let's see. You know what? Did you not send me one? Do you have one?
No, I didn't send you one, but I love it. It's a great surprise. You know
what? That is actually something from last year. You can tell us how
it is.
You want to talk about? Well, why don't I? Well, we'll show it up from. You can talk about maybe some of the differences. Just we want the basic trends of financing and the overview. Or why don't I just, or I can turn it off and let you just talk from the heart.
Why don't you do that? And,
okay, that sounds like a better plan.
We've got short time, so I'm going to focus on some real highlights here.
There you go.
What I think U.S. attorneys need to know about producing in Canada. First of all, let me situate you in a bit in the way that Bill did with respect to Ireland. So Canada's total production volume last year was $9 billion, okay? $9 billion, of which 5.27 was foreign location and service production. So this is really, really important to understand about the Canadian industry. Now, let me go back 10 years, 2011, 2012, 28% of Canada's production was foreign location and service production. So we went from 28, let's say 30, to 58, let's say 60 in 10 years. So the bottom line is the story about the Canadian film and television production industry is increasingly and today, currently a majority foreign location and service production. So that's point one. We are a service industry. Number two, who do we serve? We serve the United States. 79% of that production for foreign location and service work is US-based producers producing in Canada. So if you put those two together, 30% of our entire industry is producing for the US producers, streamers, the majors, you know, Sony, Mattel, et cetera, and the independents. Now, where's it being done? 52% of our foreign location and service work is BC, Vancouver, 27% Ottawa or Ontario, and 18% Quebec. So basically, you've got three big production centers, and from a foreign production and service perspective, it's Vancouver with 50% of the work, 25% in Ontario, which is predominantly Toronto, and 18% in Quebec. So let's talk then. I don't think there's anything more I wanted to say about that overview. So let's talk then about what's important to that U.S. producer and their professional advisor. So let's look first at why is 58% of Canadian production foreign location and service work? Well, it's two things. It's tax credits and it's the dollar. So the dollar is currently, as of today, I looked it up, $1.28. So every American dollar buys $1.28 Canadian. You then combine that with tax credits in the 35% rate, and we'll get into the tax credits in detail, but roughly a third of your labor costs, 35 to 40% of your labor costs come back by way of tax credits. So you take the tax credits, you take the dollar differential, the exchange rate, and basically you're producing in Canada for half the rate. And it's close, it's the same language, it has the same geography in various parts of Canada. It has, trained crew and facilities, which we'll get into later. But so those are the things that are driving the state of the Canadian industry. And so number one, most relevant consideration for the American producers producing in Canada are the tax credits. So let's just do a quick review, because it's surprises me always, even among the streamers, and we've worked on 3 or 4 production service agreements involving major streamers in the last 4 weeks or 5 weeks. And, you'd think that they'd really have nailed the issue of the tax credits, but surprisingly, in many cases, they haven't. So there's some fundamental misconceptions about the tax credits. So I'm going to hit like the top 5 things you need to know about tax credits. Number one, they're refundable tax credits. They're credits against tax payable. So by definition, they're claimed by the taxpayer, by the Canadian, Ontario, BC producer, right? So they're a credit against that company's tax payable, which is one of the reasons you always use a special purpose production company, so it doesn't have any tax, right? Because otherwise it'll eat up your credit. Number 2, we have federal and provincial tax credits, okay? Number 3, we have a content tax credit and a production service tax credit. The content tax credit is for Canadian content. In the case of the provincial credits, it's content that qualifies as provincial content. You don't really need to think about the content tax credit. It's a little bit more lucrative, but the vast majority of production, location, and service work in Canada done by the American producers is not Canadian content. It's very difficult to qualify your production as Canadian content. There's all kinds of hoops required, key creatives, origin of the script or the creative development has to be, anyway, production controls, all kinds of hoops. You don't want to get into that in 95% of the cases. So what you're looking at as you're advising your American producer is you're looking at the production services tax credits, dead simple tax credits. Really just need two things to qualify. Number one, you need to, the Canadian producer must contract with the copyright holder. That's often, especially among some of the majors, they have so many corporations and the property rights, the right to produce flows between them. And it's always a point of, I want to see proof that the party on this contract with the Canadian producer is the copyright holder. Okay, so the other thing is there's a dollar requirement, $1 million for a film, $200,000 per episode, almost always easy to qualify. So what you're looking at is the production services tax credit. I'm not going to get into the process of claiming those. The bottom line, though, is that your taxpayer has to claim them. The production services tax credits, though, a foreign-owned corporation can be qualified. So in some cases, what you've got is you've got a producer in the US setting up a Canadian subsidiary, and even if it's controlled by the American shareholder, it still qualifies for production services tax credits. So there's tremendous flexibility there in terms of those tax credits. And as I said, combining federal and provincial rates, you're looking at something like 35 to 40% of your labor costs. One thing I would say, just a bit of a gotcha, roughly, what was it? I don't know, a year or 2 years ago, BC, Creative BC, introduced a requirement of pre-registration, and it's hurt some producers. It's basically a requirement to pre-register the production with Creative BC. There's nothing to it. It just has to be done in order to qualify the subsequent expenditure for tax credit. So you can get burned, don't get burned by missing the pre-registration qualification. It's easy to forget. Don't quite understand the rationale for it. It's just a gotcha in the system. Then the issue is who finances those tax credits? Because in most cases, the tax credit is part of the funding structure. From the foreign producer's perspective, the US producer, it reduces the total or the net cost of the production. But who pays for that? So you can go one of two ways. You can either your client can finance the net cost, and the Canadian producer carries the difference, files for the tax credit and collects it at the end. Or alternatively, and this is most common with the streamers, is it's a full cash flow of the total production budget, and then the Canadian producer claims it at the end of the process, the tax credit, and remits it, in which case it's got to be structured as a loan. So total funding of the budget is a combination of a production fee plus the tax credit, and the tax credit portion is treated like and papered like a loan to the production company. So that's the overview of the tax credit process. What else? And I know it's—
And again, Mark, the thing that you and I talked about, and to emphasize again, is if you're in America, don't get too greedy. Just go the regular production services route. If you're trying to play with the Canadian content and you don't really have Canadian content, I saw a question on the screen. What do I do with my second lead is Canadian and I want to take the full advantage of it? And, when you start getting into that whole point system and you have to give up the copyright to the Canadian production services company and hope to God that you get it back, that you're dealing with someone honest, there's a lot of complexity to the Canadian tax component, the content component, that Mark and I were saying, you know, take the easy production services route. Don't get too greedy. And if you're really not Canadian content, there's a lot of traps there that it might be more of a headache than it's worth for the return. Did I summarize what you said yesterday pretty good? Well,
exactly. There have to be some pretty special circumstances for a foreign production company or buyer to want to go through the hoops and take the risk of structuring it as a Canadian content production.
We're gonna go about 15 minutes over, folks, but to make sure we get Serbia's take here. But Mark, let's talk about the moral rights clause in Canada. Marianna told us, yeah, we got it in the Dominican Republic, but nobody's really paying attention to it. You can assign it, and we'll recognize the assignment. We heard what Massimo had talked about in terms of Europe's view on this. To share with us our Canadian neighbors' view on moral rights, because it's very different than here in America.
Okay, so two differences in our copyright, and I'll try to deal with them in very, very quickly. Number one, the treatment of employees, U.S. and Canadian law, as far as I understand it, and I'm not an expert in U.S. law, but treatment of employees the same. If it's the individual's an employee, then the creative work is owned by the employer, okay? Same treatment as well as between Canada and the United States, as I understand it, with independent contractors, so non-employees. The independent contractor owns the copyright by default. The first difference is here, and you see this in 50% of the agreements we look at. It's structured around the US system, not the Canadian system. So that's the first giveaway that somebody's gotten their agreement off the internet, because they use work for hire language. Work for hire is this magic incantation formula in the US Copyright Act that says if it's work made for hire, it's the copyright is the hirer's copyright. We don't have that language in Canada. We've kind of adopted a formula that's kind of like that. We say it's work in the nature of employment. We try to bring or deem the relationship to be, for the purposes of copyright, to be an employment relationship. I don't know if that actually works. I mean, I'm not aware of any judicial decision that says that works. The legislative provision, the Copyright Act, says it doesn't, but who knows? We may be able to get around that. The bottom line, though, is that we always use an assignment of the legal right. So the economic right, the economic copyright, the legal right, we always use an assignment. So we don't take chances with it. We just assign it all. The second thing, and to get to your point, David, the moral rights. Unlike another speaker, and I think it was Massimo, said there's no waiver, we've got waiver in Canada. So bottom line is, we've got a strong moral rights clause. It has two components: the integrity of the work and essentially the right to be associated or not to be associated with the work. Those are the two primary elements of moral rights. They're quite powerful. You absolutely must, as a U.S. attorney dealing with Canadian copyright, you must have a waiver of moral rights, and they're effective in Canada. There's if the waiver of moral rights is made in favor of a licensee or copyright holder, it applies to the sub-licensees and the licensees of the copyright holder. Otherwise, we provide in our language for the extension of that waiver to the subs of the contracting party. So to summarize, David, on moral rights, we have a strong moral rights clause, deals with integrity and with naming. You absolutely cannot contract with creatives without a waiver of moral rights, because you can't do anything with their work. So that's a very, very standard but absolutely critical piece of.
And you said there was a case that you could talk about.
Well, I didn't know if we've got time, but I'll try it.
Yeah, let's go. I mean, it's like I said, it's on the webinar. People.
Very quickly. My favorite, case on this point is a fellow named Michael Snow, a famous Canadian artist, a sculptor. created a flock of geese, of very large geese that hang in one of our largest Canadian shopping centers. And many years ago, 25 years ago, the shopping center management made the decision to put red bows on the necks of Michael Snow's Canada geese. And you know,
for Christmas.
For Christmas, yeah. Sorry, you're right, David. The essential point for Christmas. It was decorative, and frankly, I saw it. I thought it looked great. Anyway, Michael Snow disagreed, believed it interfered with the integrity of the work, violated his moral right in the work, and he was successful. Subsequent decisions have said, in fact, that perhaps the standard should be a little bit higher. There should be independent proof, you know, experts and the public who would consider it to be denigrating the work. And then Parliament came along in 1992 or something and early 2000s, and actually refined the test there for sculptors, painters, etc. Any change to the work is deemed to be an attack on the integrity. Others, you need to follow the common law test, and there needs to be actual evidence that the integrity of the work has been challenged. But
is it settled that film falls into that fine art qualification, just like other sculptures and painters and stuff?
Well, it's not within the specific. It's not one of the enumerated categories, and so you would need to demonstrate that the work, it not being a sculpture or painting, you would need to demonstrate that the work has been demeaned, that the integrity has been compromised by the change made. But really, as a practical matter, David, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? You hire someone to do a script, to do a design, to do this, to do that. You've got to get a waiver of moral rights. It's an absolute. I mean, it's negligence not to in any kind of a creative agreement. You just can't do anything with your with the creator's contribution. Now, sometimes, of course, the creator will push back and say, no, you can't modify my script. If anybody's going to modify it, it's going to be me. So, I mean, that's a negotiating point, but it has to be adverted to, and it has to be defined in the contract. So that's kind of
one of the questions that was in the commentary, and I think it was probably directed towards when Massimo was speaking on this, on the right of publicity in America. The right of publicity ends when you're deceased, and then there's a separate statute that California recognizes for deceased celebrities. There's a way to register and have that right of publicity live on past the death. Is there any equivalent in Canada how they deal with right of publicity for dead celebrities or dead individuals?
So we have three quick rights. I mean, I try to really blow through this. 3, misappropriation of personality. That's a property right. It's an economic right. It travels or it passes to your estate. In other words, if you, one of the cases was a guy developed a condo and named the suites after celebrities. William Shatner sued and was successful because the developer was misappropriating the commercial value of William Shatner's name in this development. So that's a misappropriation of personality. It's a property right, and it's about essentially theft of the value. Now, lots of people don't have valuable personalities, and so the number 2 in the kind of principle in this area is privacy. So that's about showing people. One of the key cases was an advertisement in which there was film footage of a woman running or walking through a park, and she said, "Hey, I didn't give you permission to use me." And they, one of the things they argue, well, no commercial value to your name. And she said, "Doesn't matter. You're invading my personality or my privacy." And was successful. So we've got misappropriation of personality, commercial right, privacy, different kind of right, and then finally, obviously, defamation. If the use of my name or image is used in a way that lowers the esteem which others, in which I'm held by others. So there's those three related rights in Canada that make up a bit of a package there.
And Marianna, does the Dominican Republic have kind of the same thing?
Well, it's similar to what you've said. Once the person dies, that's where the rights end.
Got it. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I mean, yes. And so I hope it's clear that in Canada, certainly the misappropriation of the personality, the property right transfers to the estate. So it doesn't end in Canada. I mean, William Shatner's estate would still be entitled to sue for, in similar circumstances.
Or since he's going to live forever, Lorne Green, the Lorne Green estate. How about that?
We hope so.
It's
Anyway,
the other legendary Canadian artist, Harold Ramis.
Is there anything else you wanted me to touch on? Obviously, you've got lots of questions, and
just the last thing I'm going to have you just really quickly just explain this bill that C11 that's in Canada right now, and how that might affect production or distribution.
So interesting, probably not going, well, affect production only monetarily and not to the benefit of foreign producers. So let me unpack that. Bill C11, an amendment to the Broadcast Act. The biggest element in Bill C11 is it brings into the definition of broadcaster those who stream, who exhibit solely on the internet. Of course, it's a weird thing because the Broadcast Act, the essential justification of the Broadcast Act is that broadcasters were using a rare or limited public good, that is the airwave spectrum, right? So that was the original justification, and now the definition of the Broadcast Act is going to include exhibitors, the streamers and others who are not using public airwaves and aren't using limited resources. So it's a rather odd development, but nevertheless, there it is. So Canada is going to regulate the streamers. The definition of streamer is quite broad. Could be with one of your clients. It's not just Netflix, Apple, Amazon. It's not defined by size in that sense. So it could be anybody who's got a broadcast channel of any sort on the internet that's available in Canada. Number two, in terms of the, having widened the net for the definition of broadcaster, is going to be made subject to a couple of things. One, contribution to the Canadian production ecosystem. So there's monetary levies that are placed on broadcasters to contribute funds to be administered by organizations like the Canada Media Fund for production. So there's a cash element to being characterized as broadcasters. And secondly, there are going to be requirements, which I find fascinating. You can tell I'm not a great fan of this bill, but on preferring Canadian content. So the CRTC, our regulator, Canadian Radio Telecommunications Commission, which administers the Broadcast Act, has for a long time required as conditions of license for radio and television broadcasters to prefer Canadian content. So a certain amount of Canadian content during prime time. Well, they're putting in a similar type of requirement for the streamers, which will be interesting. Essentially, changing up your algorithms to preference Canadian content in search and in promotion, etc. So, my big worry is, what if the rest of the world, what if Massimo, what if, Italy or the United States or others decide, hey, you know what, we'd kind of like to do that as well. And we start to get this very weird, international preferencing of local content. So, so that's Bill C11. Very, very controversial.
And it sounds more like China in that regard.
Well, yeah, I don't want to go there. I sure as heck hope it's not. Anyway, elements of that.
Thank you so much, Mark. And Milan, thank you so much for your patience. You're beaming in from Serbia today. Your bio is in the materials. He is a film director. He's a producer. He provides production services to those that want to film in Serbia. I can tell you, I just had a film that shot there in the end of December and January. Went like clockwork. I know the client was looking at a lot of different states, looking at upstate New York and their tax credits and their little extra higher benefit that's given in economically distressed areas, looking all different places, New Mexico. And they found that even with the travel to Serbia, it was still cost effective to do it there. They had wonderful housing for inexpensive rates. The crew was knowledgeable and inexpensive. And Milan, first, why don't we show a couple of clips of the types of projects that you have done in Serbia with foreign folks, where you've been.
Well, the trailers, the links I have sent were more like an illustration. I didn't work on those movies except on The Outpost, which I directed. So maybe you can just play that one. It's the shortest.
Which one? The Outpost. Okay, let's. There we got 2 episodes. Let's take a look at your work, and then we'll let you talk a little bit. Hold on, let me share the screen here.
For the sins of your ancestors.
Get out. We can serve you better by serving them. I need to work from the inside.
It's been 39 days. When are we putting a plan in action?
Do you have any idea what this Yuval wants?
No.
The Blackfists are grown restless. The Outpost. New episodes premiere October 8th. Free next day, only on the CW app.
So it's Serbia's putting out quality, first-rate television programming. Milan, tell us a little bit about. Well, first of all, how is the Ukrainian situation, which is relatively close to where you are, is that having any effect on your production or your life in any way, or
well, not more than anywhere else. I mean, only like prices of the fuel are getting expensive, and gas, but actually it's not so close, so it doesn't have any effect on it. And it's the productions are currently like more than ever practically working here. And I wanted to start actually with stating that Serbia was, which probably most of you know, part of Yugoslavia, which was a big country back then. And Yugoslavian president Tito very early realized what is the power of film. So he was actually the biggest force forcing people to watch movies and make movies. And he also, the state back then invested a lot of money in film schools, universities, and also movies that were shown in Yugoslavian and therefore Serbian cinemas were movies from all over the world. So American, Russian, French, German, Japan. So all of these countries show movies in Serbia without dubbing them. It was a subtitle. So Serbians had a lot film knowledge by only watching movies, but also making movies of their own, because the country was investing a lot of money in making movies. And eventually it started production services even back in 60s and 70s with big movies being shot here, like Clint Eastwood was shooting here, Kirk Douglas, I mean, a lot of big American stars. So jump forward, there is like a big tradition of filmmaking here in Serbia, and the crew is actually, the crews are generations of people making movies here. So what you said in the beginning, the crew here are very, very experienced and high level. Although when you say people like, oh, we're going to shoot in Serbia, most of them think first, they don't even know where that is. They think it's Syria or Siberia or I don't know what. And when they get here, they think like, oh, these people don't know anything about movies. But no, like every time, first day on set with like, like, let's say American DP coming here, and when he sees like the electricians, gaffers, the equipment we have and everything, like they're like, wow, like they didn't expect that. So therefore, there is a lot of quality, like high level crew, equipment, studios and stuff like that, that some of them are of course new, studios, but the tradition of making movies here is very, very old. In past, like let's say 10 years, the incentives are getting attracting more and more people here, and currently incentive is 25% of spend. The minimum spend has to be 300,000 euros, and if you spend more than 5 million, you get 30% back. But the thing is, these incentives are pretty, let's say, easy to get. You come here, you spend it, you register your film through local production service, and the administration that has to be done is not so difficult. It's just like some simple paperwork. The thing is, they have to see the script. Everything has to be in Serbian. They have to read the script. If there is anything against Serbia in that script, they won't allow it. Or some other, I don't know, some anti-religious or whatever thing. But most of the films are like not like that. So usually you just register a movie, they allow it that you can make it, and after you finish the whole project, there is a revision that has to be made by audit that is certified by state. And once they go through all the bills, all the invoices and everything you paid, that's practically it. You just give it to the country, and the audit revision say how much money you can get back from this, what is spent, and it happens relatively fast in a matter of a couple of months. The thing is, like there is no, let's say, room to make some kind of fraud there, because state is so much controlling this that you just really have to every penny has to be justified and sent back once it's sent back to the investor once it is approved. Also about these incentives is the thing is, I lost my thought, sorry. Filming in Serbia has many, let's say, benefits, not only these two things I already mentioned, the experience filmmaking and incentives, but also you have a variety of locations. That is also one of the big things here, that you can have, like in Belgrade, you can shoot Berlin, Paris, Moscow. You can make some like construction departments are like very, very like experienced, and can make like biggest asset can be if you have to make something. The trailer you saw in the outpost, everything was built. So the whole town of medieval town was built, and it looks really good. This show, The Outpost, is a good example. This first season of this show was shot in US, in Utah, and it didn't look good, and it was almost canceled. But the producer was like, really wanted to make something more. And they came to Serbia with exactly the same budget they had in Utah, and the show became almost like Game of Thrones. And they got 3 more seasons after that. It became much, much bigger and much better with exactly the same budget they had. and everything, as I said, was recreated, built there. The departments that are making the art departments, costume departments, they are really high level, and also the studios are built like they are like in American studios. They look, I mean, all the capacities American studios have, we have here. Crews speak
and
English.
when you're doing the tax credit, like Mark said, you know, with Canada Production Services Company, it in some way is papered like a loan. You have to have the production, you have to have the Serbian company do all of the tax credits, and then if I'm the American producer, I'm going to get it, you know, get it back through you, and of course you would take. I imagine it's built into the production services fee, that the processing of that paper. Is that pretty much?
Well, for example, me as a, let's say, service provider cannot take anything from the incentive. Like the whole amount of the returned money goes directly to the investor. I mean, it goes to me and it goes to the investor, and I have to prove, from bank, the bill to show to the government that I paid it. Like the last cent has to go to American, or I mean to foreign investor, whoever that is. So that part of the let's say deal is it cannot be part of production services fee. So, but the fee is also eligible for incentives. For example, I took, let's say, 100,000 fee. 25% of that is going to be returned to the investor.
Great.
So
That was kind of in reference to one of the questions about how how financing fees work with the you know, the middlemen and the tax credits issue. So thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, it has to be, everything has to be justified through this revision, and every local Serbian element that was used is going to be most likely eligible for the incentive. I mean, almost everything you're going to spend here is going to be, they will allow that to get 25% of that. I mean, like, even plane tickets, if it goes to Serbian air company, can be allowed to that. So if you have American actors and they don't mind coming with Air Serbia, and you buy tickets here for them, it also can be eligible. But you know, most of the, I mean, that company is not so high level as some others, so most of them don't come that. But still, and aside of that, everything here is much cheaper than I think anywhere else in Europe, because we are still not part of European Union. So the prices are generally lower here, especially prices of food and accommodation. And we have like, you know, like 5-star hotels like Hilton and others that are, the prices are not as Hilton in London. It's we are in Belgrade, you know. And also post-production services, also many projects are doing it here, also eligible for incentives. TV series, like you have to spend like 150,000 per episode, and then you can get money back. Many series are being done now here, American and British. Even SEAL Team was shooting in Belgrade last year. And also people have started using local talent, not only actors, but also artists. For example, I'm directing American TV show. I mean, I was the first one that was actually hired to do something as a director here, but now they started hiring other directors from Serbia to direct, because then they saw that people here are very, you know, like well crafted, the filmmakers, so we can make a quality show and they can get incentive on our fee, which is still lower fee than, let's say, some director who's DGA, and then plus they will get incentive on that. And now DPs, production designers, all of them are now I just finished yesterday directing another American show for NBC Universal. And as I said, I was director on 2 episodes of that show, which is going to be completely done here. DP, production designer, everybody is from here, except lead cast. And special effects, visual effects are going to be done here. Color correction is going to be done here. So like the whole show is going to be done here totally. And
I really thought, I was trying to persuade my my clients to shoot in like Buffalo, Niagara Falls area where it's the same thing. Hotels are cheaper than New York City and things like that. And I was thinking to take a film to Serbia, that the costs in getting everybody there and dealing with that would just wouldn't make sense compared to doing something with a U.S. state tax credit. But their line producer showed it worked. There was a cost savings. They had, as Milan has said, an incredibly talented crew, and they really enjoyed the experience. And they had the COVID protocols just like anywhere else, and it went without the problem.
The COVID protocols are really still high, although let's say it's very, in some countries it is eased, the measures, and even in Serbia, like in general, the measures are not that strong anymore. But in film industries are still everybody has to wear masks and they're tested several times a week and etc. etc. So all the COVID protocols are really fully. But also for this project, the location we had that was kind of recreating a sorority house was actually King's Palace in center of Belgrade. So we were shooting almost a month in actual King's Palace, and it was still worth coming here. And of course the production value was much bigger than anywhere else. Also, in Belgrade, you have a medieval fortress in center of the city. You can have really big variety of locations, but the best thing is the whole country is film friendly, and the permits to shoot in these places are not hard to get. So it's easy to, if you have to fulfill some of the administration part, but you're most likely going to get any location you want in Belgrade or in Serbia. And even the Prime Minister's cabinet is very into bringing film productions here. So sometimes even if you need help with something, they are really willing to help to get something done in high level. And for example, Steven Seagal has a Serbian citizenship. So if you hire Steven Seagal, you will get shoot in Serbia, you will get incentives. Also Ray Fiennes. So some of these big names are, got Serbian passports, and in theory, you can get 25% of their big fees. Also, another thing, very close to us, and we work a lot with Montenegro and Croatia. So in Montenegro, you can shoot in the same week skiing and beach scenes in summer, because it's 1 hour drive from the highest mountain to the Mediterranean beach. And with Serbia and Montenegro, it was the same country. So we usually work, we offer locations from Montenegro as well. And you also get incentive there.
Terrific. I appreciate that. And I know to process the tax credits, you really want someone in the know in that territory. I know we utilized Serbian counsel to handle all the legal paperwork on the tax credit. Marianna, I know in the DR, the studios like Lantica and such, part of the production service process is they hold your hand and walk you through the tax credit. That's pretty much the way it's done. There's always someone local that handles that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's precisely how it's similar to how in Serbia it's handled. So you have a local production service company engaging some big firm that would handle the tax credit. And the process, it's very similar to what Milan explained. We have a public audit where us, the film commission, in our case, goes over every single expense to make sure it's qualified expense. But the professional firm that it's engaged is usually prepares the paperwork in such a manner that there's almost no mistake whatsoever.
Terrific. Well,
I would like also to add something also, because it may be interesting for foreign producers coming to Serbia because of what was Marianna saying about you have to pay taxes to some of the fees. So in Serbia, you practically, when you hire somebody to work on your film, you hire an agency. So for example, Focus Puller, you hire agency that represents Focus Puller, and that way the taxes are not paid over the fee, because the actual taxes are very high in Serbia. So in a way to avoid that, so that the producers don't get like suddenly bigger amount they have to spend, you hire an agency, and it's totally legal and everything works like that. The only thing is that everybody has to have an agency, and everybody in the film business have it. And it's not like an agency that represents it. It's like their own, like mini company.
The equivalent of what we call a loan out here in the States. It's the actors, it's one company and it's the actors, and you pay that, and then they pay the actor directly. And then there was a question from about just open to everybody, Mark or anybody. It said, can you gross up the actor's salary by 2%? I think Marianna, this was probably be directed towards the DR actors withholding. Can you gross up the actor's salary by 2%? In the state of Georgia, has a 6% tax withholding on foreign corporations such as actors who have California loan outs. I guess if you gross up the actor's salary, the 1.5 is still going to be on that extra little 2%. So, but it gets them closer.
Here. That's what at the end of the day happens.
That's usually what happens.
Negotiating, yeah, it's just okay. So again, there's still withholding, but
it's the devil is in the details. It's the difference between a good talent attorney and a great talent attorney that catches those little things and says, "Wow, look what my attorney just got me extra money by recognizing this 1.5 withholding in the DR or where in whatever other entity might be." So some universal lessons as we before we sign off here. We are seeing production surging as a result of the streamers and as the world reawakening from the pandemic. We are seeing a need for experienced crew all around the world. They're building studio spaces left and right. We just need to make sure that there's crews there to properly man them. Pick and choose your tax credits. Understand the difference between a tax credit and a tax rebate. Understand exactly how far your money will go. Understand dollar exchange rates. This is something an experienced line producer and production accountant should be primarily handling, but you as the production attorney, should be able to spot these issues, right? I mean, that's half the battle is you don't necessarily need to know the answer, just know the questions to ask, and then you can find the requisite specialist in that area that can answer those questions. And of course, invoking local counsel to answer those questions is something that is extremely prudent to do. And you certainly see a group here. Milan is not an attorney, but he held his own amongst a panel of all attorneys, and you can see he's pretty knowledgeable on this stuff. He's been doing it enough, folks like that, production service heads can hold your hand and really show you the lay of the land for the for dealing with these different jurisdictions. And again, it's also helpful, as we've heard throughout here, to have that person in the trenches that's really in the know on this is really the way stuff gets done here. Let's just call this guy. You're not going to find that in a regulation. You're not going to find that in a handbook. You're not going to find that in some case precedent. It's just this is the custom and practice here, and I'm aware of it. And you know, you're going to have a production services company. Milan had worked with one of my prior clients on a number of films, so we had a high level of trust with his company. But if you're going in with a company that you don't know, you do want to have someone really trusted that can kind of be the eyes and ears for you. And that person might be local counsel in the jurisdiction that can kind of just, you know, watch over the production services and say, and hear what they're saying is the custom and practice, and rubber stamp that and say, yeah, that is the right way to go. With that, I'll just, the panelists that are still here, any final thoughts, words of wisdom about your particular territory, filming there, advice for filmmakers? We will start with Marianna. Closing thoughts.
I would have to pick up on that last suggestion you made, engage local counsel. Although our law is quite simple in terms of how to apply for the tax credit, it's always helpful whenever designing financing structures using the tax credits to engage local counsel. I think that will be, and me as a lawyer, I think that would be a suggestion.
Wonderful
Also,
advice.
always approach the Film Commission. We're happy to help.
They are an incredible resource I found in just about every jurisdiction. They will really, you don't have to recreate the wheel. They will answer the same, whatever question you had, you have 30 producers before you had the same question, and they have the answer for you. So let's move from Latin America to our friends up north in Canada, Mark Edwards. Some closing thoughts. Oh, you're muted, Mark. You gotta unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, I'm tempted to just echo Marianna's comment. You know, it's there's a tremendous amount of similarity in Canada, in the United States, both with respect to the legal system and with respect to all matters of production. So most of the issues that the US is facing, we are also facing. The conditions are roughly the same. We have the same clients, the same, essentially consumer base. So there's so much that's similar, but it's the differences that are going to get you, right? And so, you know, it's not about, you know, giving up the file or the matter or the deal or the agreements to somebody else. It's your client. You know, you manage the file, you manage the relationship, and you do the heavy lifting. But, you know, reach out for pointed, specific advice to make sure that if you're relying on a tax credit, you're going to qualify for it. You've followed the appropriate procedures and rules. You know, have your key, you know, creative templates, for example, quickly reviewed for the, you know, for copyright matter, for compliance with Canadian law. It's Canadian counsel are a complement to your work, not a replacement. But I echo Marianna's comments. They're absolutely critical. We are a different jurisdiction, though that's sometimes forgotten.
Thank you. And we'll just bounce across the pond to the closest country to Canada, the US, our friend in Ireland. Bill, closing thoughts.
Well, I completely agree with what Marianna and Mark have just said. You know, I'm Irish, and I've been back here since 2014. I'm not admitted in Ireland. I'm admitted in California, but I know lots of people, and I work with local counsel. I work with tax specialists. I work with production accountants and all of that sort of thing. I just say this: a couple of years ago, there was an announcement somewhere. I saw it in Variety, Hollywood Reporter. A movie coming to Ireland, a cast of characters involved in setting up the movie, including a lawyer that I used to work with, and I dinged him a quick email. And I said, you know, do you need any help here? I'd be, you know, glad to get involved. He said, no, we're all taken care of. The reason I contacted him was there were a couple of in that cast of characters I knew were unlikely to get the movie off the ground. And I couldn't say it at the, you know, at this point. I didn't want to torpedo his thing, but of course, you know what? The movie never got off the ground. It never happened. So it's you need to know the law, or you need to know who to go to for the law. You need to know the accounting, and you need to know who to go to for that. But also just knowing the terrain, knowing that such and such a person is fantastic and this person is a waste of time. It's important to have somebody you can trust who can help you with that.
And Milan, you were the last presenter, so we'll give you the last word. Final thoughts on filming in Serbia, advice for foreigners, and any other words of wisdom you'd like to share.
Well, you know, filming in Serbia is, in the end, easygoing. You know, so everything is very solvable, and it's just the matter, you know, like what do you need and who you talk to. But also there are like Film Center of Serbia and Serbian Film Commission, like two like authorities that you can contact before you come here, and they will appoint you to somebody who is going to be fit for your project. And I think in the end, you will just think to stay there and to bring more projects while you're there. And, you know, like the food is great. So like everybody gets better here.
And I'll also mention that just be a little extra careful with their particular brand of alcohol. I know I went to the Kusendorf Film Festival, and pretty much the entire festival is an enclosed little village. Think of Club Med, if Club Med was in all medieval architecture. And you eat all your meals there, and they have like 5 different theaters there, and it's very cold. And you really feel like you're almost in a Games of Thrones environment. And every night you eat well and you drink well, and people get more drunk than I've ever seen people get drunk till 4 in the morning, and then they go to sleep, and you wake up in the afternoon and you start watching films again. That's Amir Kastamiras' film festival. He owns that resort. He's a highly decorated, acclaimed filmmaker. He's been at Cannes a number of times. So the country does have a real love of film, but
the whole country is like that, you know. The whole country is like that. Not only his festival.
And alcohol really puts you on your ass, and it tastes good too. It's sweet. So here's the upcoming events for the Beverly Hills Bar. May 4th is our next executive board meeting. Register to attend at this site that'll be in the materials. Again, there'll be additional written materials that go out to all the registered guests at this seminar. The seminar will be available on YouTube at some point for future viewing. The BHBA will send California bar attorneys their certificate of completion for this seminar program. Written supplemental materials will also be sent to you probably on Monday. And please complete the seminar review form when you will receive that with your CLE certificate. Like to know how we're doing, how the speakers were, if there's any way we could improve. We hope you found this useful. We hope you found it beneficial. I love it. It brings the world to be such a closer, wonderful place. We need film, we need friendship, we need world love. The panelists that we show, show that wherever you are, situations are pretty much the same. You're dealing with the same issues, be it film or whatever other world events exist, dealing with the pandemic, etc. it's a real joy. It's one of my favorite things to do is deal with my international counterparts. And I do look forward to the world opening up and having the opportunity to travel to all of your locations in the future and write it off as a business trip. So with that, have a great weekend, stay well, and hope you enjoyed the show.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
And thank you,
Bye-bye.
David.
Thank you.
My
Bye-bye
pleasure.
now.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye, David.
Bye-bye.